Let's start by talking about Azure. So what is Azure first? Microsoft Azure, commonly referred to as Azure, is a cloud computing platform and the service offered by Microsoft. So it's a cloud computing platform, right? The Azure provides a wide range of cloud services that enables organizations to build, deploy, and manage application services and infrastructure through Microsoft's global network of data centers. If you read carefully, it's basically talking about applications, services, and infrastructure. And if you think back, we talked about infrastructure as a service, the platform as service, and the software as a service, right? These are basically what paragraph is talking about here. It's one of the leading cloud platforms and is used by businesses, developers, and IT professionals for various cloud-related tasks. Now, this is the current website for Azure, azure.microsoft.com, and we do expect this to keep the same for a long time. And what does Azure consist of? This we talk about components of cloud computing, right? Cloud computing basically have three parts. In the whole cloud computing ecosystem, there are three parts. First of all, cloud computing is about offering services, IT resources that resides in data center, right? This is just that these data center are not your traditional data center. It's the cloud service providers data center. Um, what you are offered is no matter what you are requesting, it's a server. Servers in data centers, no matter what name is called, no matter what the service it provides, what kind of applications, what kind of functionality, what kind of a service it provides, there's always a server running behind it. Inside cloud service providers data center, this data center for each data center is no different from the traditional data center. However, because they have so many data centers, and those data centers belongs to the same company and utilize and follows the same protocol, same regulation, same way of running of operation. So it's a transferable, it's expandable. Your request can swi- your can, request the resource that you request can be swiftly switched from one data center to another before you can even notice that. So this is why this cloud data center is more powerful than the traditional data center, because there are more data center which offers larger capacity and better service. So this is server in data centers. The second part of a cloud computing ecosystem, of course, is the clients. And that's simply is you. Then between clients and the servers, there's connection. Either it's an internet or it's a dedicated link, direct link to cloud data centers. The latter will be similar to what you will have in a traditional data center, but more commonly than not, you are using internet to connect to servers. So we have this chart here, which is probably easier to understand. What do we have? We have servers here. We have data center here, and we have a servers inside the data center. But these servers are inside the data center, and their service is provided through REST API. And then there's also like account management services, which manages those servers here, provide the service through a web browser. As a client, you can access the service through REST API, and you can use browser or use your code, either it's Java or some kind of script, to access REST API. So these are the data centers. So these are the components inside a cloud computing environment. Regarding these servers, there's a compute nodes and there's storage nodes, and there's administrative nodes. Compute nodes, as the name suggests, provide the CPU computing power, It provides you with the ability to do all kind of calculations, including the string operation or decimal numerical operation. Then storage nodes focus more on storing your data into some hard disk or something and the management of these disks. And finally, there's administrative nodes, which runs the maintenance jobs, etc. So back to this picture, right? We have this web browser connecting to account service, and this account services will access the data center and manage those services. Indeed, if you think about this, all those servers inside this data center is the compute and the storage nodes, and the nodes that you connect to the web server, your web browser is connecting to some kind of a web server, which provides you with the services, right? Those are administrative nodes. Administrative nodes can be in the same data center as these servers, or they can be in their own data center, different from the compute and storage nodes. But if you so at this point, I think we already know the nodes can be in any data center, right? Um, compute nodes, so storage nodes, administrative nodes, they can be in different data centers, but because they are all linked by high-speed internet and all transferred over internet, so you may not even notice, and you should not care where they reside in which data center, just as what we discussed about when we discussed SaaS. We mentioned that for email server, for email server, you should not worry about where the server is, where your email message is stored in, right? Um, Data cloud data center is where the services are hosted in. Essentially, it provides the same functionality as traditional data centers, just of a larger scale. It's larger than most traditional data centers. It has a larger number of data centers offered by each data cloud service provider, and it's geographically distributed. We will talk about this geographical distributed part very soon. So, which comes to the Azure region and availability zone. Azure data centers are located across the world. So Microsoft is continuously adding new data centers. So here you can see they put a 58 region and 140 availability zone, 140 countries, and this number is still increasing. Uh, I would be surprised when later on you will see that it's 60 regions already. Right? Then Azure region, what is the Azure region though? An Azure region is a geographical area where Microsoft Cloud Computing Platform operates data centers to provide cloud services to customers. Each Azure region consists one or more data centers that are strategically located in close proximity to one another. These regions are distributed across the world to ensure redundancy, availability, and low latency access to Azure service. So if you look back at this picture, right, you can clearly see that we have this East US and ES US 2, and we have this Department of Defense, US government. Then here, these are basically a whole bunch of, and there's also US government, Virginia, U.S. Department of Defense. So as you can see, there are a whole bunch of store inside each dot. This is a region, and there are a bunch of data centers grouped by proximity. If they are far enough, like East US and ES US 2, their data centers are far enough to avoid some geographical disaster. Then they are separated into two different regions. And similarly, you have West US and uh, South Central US. All these are different regions. Each region consists of a bunch of data centers, right? And region are separated by geographical distance. So within each region, that's region, geographical area where Microsoft Azure hosts a bunch of data center. Within each region, though, there's something called availability zone. You can think about availability zone as one single data center, or sometimes it's one or two data center. Availability zones are unique physical locations within the region. Within each region, we have multiple data centers, and those data centers are called availability zones. They are designed to provide high availability and fault tolerance for cloud-based application services, right? Each Azure region consists of multiple availability zones, which is interconnected by high-speed, low-latency networking and separated by a significant physical distance to minimize risk of simultaneous failure. So this is the illustration. In each region, we have region 1, region 2, 3, 4, and they are separated by physical distance, by geographically distance. Within each region, 3 and 4, you can see there's a plural here, S. So they are just minimizing this for better illustration. But within 1 and 2, each has some availability zone. Not necessarily 3, some can have 6, some can only have 2. But basically, you have different multiple region availability zones within the region. Region and region are separated by the geographical distance. Availability zones are also separated by geographical distance, just to a smaller extent. So you have data center 1, data center 2, data center 3, maybe each within a certain distance, so that when an earthquake, maybe when a fire break out in zone 1, zone 2 and 3 are still available, but when an earthquake comes in, maybe 1, 2, 3 will both be affected. But in that case, region 2 is still available. The chance of, as you can see, we have East US 1, East US 2, West US, Southwest US, 4 regions, at least 4 regions in the US, right? The chance of all 4 regions get hit by a major disaster, um, I really don't see it in my lifetime, right? So, this how would this impact you? We already said that the services or your virtual machines, your service can move between different data centers, right? Then why would you still need to worry about Azure region and availability zone? The reason is that some services, not all services, are transferable. Some services are provided at availability zone level, like data center level. For example, if you subscribe to a virtual machine, that machine has to be located in one data center, right? You don't expect that the one machine appearing in 2 data centers at the same time. So that is availability zone level service. Some services, however, are at the region level. For example, Key Vault, which stores the confidential information, and those are encrypted. And why encryption has to stay in the same region? Because there are rules, there are laws that encryption keys cannot go beyond a country border. If you use one encryption key in say German, should say England, in United Kingdom, that encryption key cannot go to Ireland. And especially in Europe, most most countries only have one or two availability zone or one or two region. So that's when you have to keep the key inside encryption key inside the same region. So things like Key Vault, which stores the encrypted information, which utilize encryption key, has to be a region level service. There are also some services are provided globally. For example, username. You will only have one username across different regions in Azure. And sometimes some services allow multiple layers of the redundancy. You can, for example, for storage, you can define the storage to be local, to be in a zone, or can be in a region or multiple regions. Of course, as you increase the redundancy, the cost will also increase. But the key here is some services will allow multiple layers of redundancy. And now we come to Azure services. What does Azure service provide? The most common cloud services are machines, storage, or machines sometimes we call it compute, or storage. Machine storage, compute storage, those are infrastructure as service. Then there's database, there's applications. Those are platform as a service, and for application, it could also be software as a service. This is an example of what services are offered. It's just a very small number of services offered. We just put this here to show you. There, in fact, as of today, there are like more than 200 services offered by Azure, and it is sometimes it's hard to count how many exactly. For example, just for the virtual machine compute, right? You have virtual machine container. For storage, you have a blob, you have file, you have premium. Do you consider this one service or multiple services, right? It's hard to count. So the only thing you need to know is that there's a lot of a lot of services offered by Azure.